Hi, I'm here to talk to you about time. But before we begin, let me make one announcement. Recently, there is a huge popularity in animated GIFs in conference talks. I have to tell you one thing. This thing doesn't work, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, it's gone. I'm so sorry. Never happened before. I'm sorry. Let's try once again. I'm sorry. Yes. Yes. So animated GIFs. Yes. Animated GIFs. I have to tell you that this talk is totally and 100% animated GIFs free. And in spite of an annoying fly witnessing me rehearsing this talk has never been tested on animals. So you've been warned, you can consume this talk and apply it whenever you want. Now let's begin. In 1742, Benjamin Franklin, in his book, Advice to a Young Tradesman, writes, "Remember that time is money." This still proves true in digital reality of 2015. Recent research shows that a site that loads in 1 second, comparing to a site that loads in 3 seconds, has 50% lower bounce rate. In the same comparison, faster site has 22% higher conversions rate. This is a lot. Another research shows that for every second of performance improvement for Walmart.com, they gain 2% in conversions rate. Doesn't sound that much, but now we're talking about a company with $482 billion in annual revenue from e-commerce. Now we're talking about a lot of money. Firefox made a research and figured out that for shaving off 2.2 seconds from the Firefox browser download page would give them 15.4% in conversions rate. That would result in more than 10 million downloads per year more. This is huge. So time matters. Performance matters. There is one issue, though. There is statistics that uses these numbers leaves out one important thing. The users don't really care about statistics. Users, our main stakeholders, who give us money, who give us downloads, they don't care about absolute numbers in seconds, milliseconds, number of downloads, and so on and so on. Let me give you one example. Here is a site that title of which I deliberately hide, but we can see that it is visually complete in more than 5 seconds, and we know when load happens only after 8 seconds. This is crisis. If we would be using only statistics, we would say that this site is in desperate need for an improvement, for a performance improvement. But would you be surprised if I would tell you that this is the site that has $89 billion in revenue annually? You know why? Because it's Amazon.com. But using these statistics, we could conclude that there is a crisis out there, but fear not. Let's see how this site works in a real browser. We type in URL, and this site is almost instantly here. So why does this happen? Statistics tells us a different story. Because performance is not about statistics. Even though being an essential part of what we call performance now, absolute numbers do not define performance side. Performance is not mathematics. Performance is about perception. And today, I'm not going to tell you how to shave off milliseconds of your loading page loading times. Frankly, I'm not going to tell you about absolute numbers of time at all. Instead, I will give you a little bit different perspective on performance. I will tell you, using some simple but very effective techniques, how to manage users' perception. Because time, as we perceive it in our brains, sometimes is completely different to the time that we can watch on the stopwatch. And to help us in this journey, we will employ the most powerful tool that we have at our disposal, being our brain. Because this is the tool where all the illusions of time happen. Before we begin, I might tell you a shocking truth. Not all of your performance optimization techniques and your results can be even noticeable by a user. In 19th century, German practical psychologist Weber, and later his student WEBER-FECHNER, postulated a law that is now called WEBER-FECHNER law, where they defined a value of just noticeable difference between two stimuli, like weight, light, and so on. The thing is that time is no exception to WEBER-FECHNER law, and let's see how this law can be applied to our durations. Let's imagine we have a duration, any duration. And WEBER-FECHNER law says that there is a certain value called just noticeable difference, abbreviated as G and D, that is a constant coefficient of this duration, no matter what duration you have. And experiments show that for small periods of times, less than 30 seconds, and these are the times that we as web developers are particularly interested in, for these short periods of time, WEBER-FECHNER law can be approximated to a simple 20% rule. What does it mean? Let's say you have a page that is downloaded in 2 seconds. In order for your user to just notice any difference in time, you have to make your page faster in 2 seconds minus 20%, being 1.66 seconds. So if your page is downloading slower than 1.6 seconds, your users just don't notice the difference. So why do we spend so much time dealing with tiny bit of milliseconds? Because users just don't notice it. Another thing is that 20% rule can be used as for performance optimization, but it also can be used for regression allowance. For example, you deploy a feature to your site or your product that slows down your site. Applying this 20% rule, you can figure out whether your users will even notice this difference. If, for example, your regression is 15%, you just push the feature, forget about it, and keep going. You don't need to make your site as fast as it was before the feature, because users just don't notice the difference. This is psychology. There is one catch in this rule, though. We're talking about noticeable difference. Noticeable doesn't mean meaningful. In order for users to appreciate the optimizations you do, you have to go well beyond the 20% threshold. To understand how our brain perceives time, we need to figure out some properties of this time. In 20th century, German philosopher Martin Heidegger, in his book Being and Time, writes this about time. Time persists merely as a consequence of the events taking place in space. So time and events. According to Heidegger, time consists of myriads of events and has its beginning and end. All the events within this time have their beginning and end as well. As long as we don't have any hardcore philosophers in this room, we might agree with this. For the sake of this talk, we'll call the beginning of an event start event marker. And the moment when the event is over, we'll call an end event marker. So start event marker and end event marker. Another property of almost every event has active phase and passive phase. Active phase is when your brain is mentally active. It doesn't mean how active. It might be pure mental activity, it might be mental activity related to your physical activity, but your brain is busy doing something. In passive phase, your brain has no other option other than just wait for the event to be over. We can, using different techniques manipulate how long are these phases, and thus manage the wait. The problem is that this passive part is the most dangerous thing. This is when people complain about long waits. They mean exactly this, because active phase usually is not perceived as a wait at all for people. They are busy. Research at MIT by Richard Larson show that people in passive wait tend to overestimate the time they spend waiting by 36%. This is a lot. And active and passive phase are the second properties of events. And the third most important thing about wait and events is that people just hate passive wait. This is essential. People hate passive wait, and we all might agree with this. There are multiple techniques to manage this perception of events. We can, using this information I gave you, consider that in order to reduce this so hated passive wait, we have to increase the active phase of every event. And then people will consider that event takes less time than it actually does. All the techniques for managing this perception boil down to two simple ones. The first one being preemptive start. In this case, we deal with only one start event marker. And somehow, we should move this marker in user's perception closer to the event marker. But since we don't do anything to the original event time, we just do this in the user's brain, what happens in this part? Well, some sort of magic, or rather something that your users don't need to know about. Let's see some examples. In 2009, administration of Houston Airport started getting an interesting and unusual type of complaints. People were not satisfied with long baggage handling times. So administration decided, okay, we'll help people, and they increased the number of handlers on the baggage line. That dropped the overall time of baggage handling to 8 minutes. And anybody who is traveling knows that 8 minutes from the moment you leave the plane to the moment you get your bags on the baggage carousel is really not that much. For example, the fastest handling time in England is in Manchester Airport, and it's on average 16.5 minutes. So 8 minutes is really not that much. But surprisingly enough, the number of complaints didn't drop. Administration decided to investigate the problem, and they figured out that yes, indeed, the overall handling time is 8 minutes. But in order to get from the airplane to the baggage carousel, for an average person, it requires only 1 minute. So the rest 7 minutes, the person just stands by the baggage carousel waiting for his bags to show up. Employing the preemptive start technique, administration came out with a really simple but very effective solution. What they did, they started routing the planes to a terminal that is further from the baggage carousel. And now it took an average person 6 minutes to go from the plane to the baggage carousel. 6 minutes, and then 2 minutes waiting for the bag. So instead of 1 minute of active phase, they gave passengers 6 minutes of active phase. And instead of 7 minutes of waiting, they gave them only 2 minutes of passive wait. Guess what? The number of complaints dropped to 0. People didn't mind going longer, but they just didn't want to stand and wait. This is offline. Do we have any examples closer to online? Because we are, front-end developers. We have example with mobile application. iOS on Safari has this feature called preload top hits. How does it work? You type in URL in your browser, and you get this top hits thing at the top, if you didn't disable it deliberately. What is it? While you're typing your URL, Safari tries to guess what page, based on your history, what page are you trying to reach. And while you're typing your URL, Safari is already pre-downloading this page for you, so then when you click Go, your page is here almost instantly. While you're typing URL, Safari is already preloading the page. Another example with the same browser, opening in new tab. We're all familiar with this feature. You click on the link, you choose Open in New Tab, some tabs animation, and then the page is loaded. If we get into this tabs animation a bit closer, we will notice, I don't know whether everybody sees here, but there is this short blue line indicating that page is in the downloading process already. So while the animation progresses, this bar is progressing as well. So while you're enjoying the animation of the tabs, this site is already downloading to be delivered to you as soon as possible, preferably right after the animation is over. In our work, we are starting getting this fancy DNS prefetch, pre-connect, prefetch, and other attributes that help us speed up our sites as well. They, even though being a technical solution, they aim for the same thing that I was telling you, to reduce the passive weight by increasing the active weight for you. So while you're downloading a page, these attributes already preloading resources that you might need on the next page. With that, reducing your passive wait time when you get to those pages. So in the preemptive start technique, it all starts with the active phase and then short passive wait at the end. Similarly to this, we can have early completion technique where we deal now with end event marker that we shift somehow in user's mind closer to the beginning and have our magic right there at the end. The good example of this technique is pretty much any video streaming service, like YouTube, for example. It all starts with a passive wait. So you click the play button, the spinner is showing up to indicate that the video is in downloading process. So you're in passive wait. You have nothing else to do. You just sit and wait. But then, once the first possible to view chunk of the video is downloaded, it starts playing in your video player, hence switching you to the active phase, because your brain now is busy watching the downloaded part, while the original event of downloading the whole movie is still in progress in the background. You just don't mind, because your brain is busy. So we start with short passive wait and switch user to the active phase as soon as possible. Let's get back to our Amazon example, but now with DevTools. In particular, we are interested in the timeline. If you will analyze Amazon.com, you will notice that all the essential assets required to render the top of the page that is visible to the user immediately, these assets, like images and CSS and text, are ready in less than a second. They're ready to be rendered, and they are rendered. And this is what happens. When these assets are rendered on the screen, user is switched from passive phase of the wait all the way to the active phase, because there is something on the screen that users can consume already. And they don't care whether it's 5 or 6 or 7 seconds after this switch. The page keeps downloading. And this is where statistics doesn't give us real picture of how users perceive your sites. This is great when you have active phase in your event. But what happens if, for example, your event doesn't have obvious active phase? Well, we create one. In the beginning of 20th century, managers of skyscrapers and high buildings in the US started getting a lot of complaints from people living in these buildings on long waiting for the elevators. Long wait time. So people had to wait for 10, 15 minutes to get to the elevator in during the rush hours. And of course, they were a bit nervous when they were rushing to work or something. There was no technical solution, no easy technical solution for this problem. You cannot really build more elevators in existing buildings. You can also not tear down the building and build a new one with 5 more elevators. From here, the story diverges. Designers say that it was a designer. Engineers say it was an engineer. But somebody came up with an idea, and the idea was mirrors. Mirrors all the way from the floor to the ceiling in the lobby where people are waiting for the elevator, including the elevator itself. And guess what? After that, the number of complaints dropped to 0. What happened? Before mirrors, the whole process of waiting in an elevator was pure passive wait. There was no active phase. People had to stand and wait for the elevator. With employing the windows, we switched the whole passive wait into the active phase. Because people looking at the mirror, they keep their brain busy. They look at themselves before going to work. They look how they look like after the hard day working. They peek at each other secretly, and their brain is busy. Long after this story, many years after that, some of us still use mirrors to entertain their brain. To conclude this, I would tell you that modern front-end developer should always consider performance. But performance with only technical means is just simply not enough. Modern front-end developers have to be technicians, have to be psychologists, and a little bit of magicians. We should show the user what they want to see while doing the real job behind the stage. Good developer knows how to build fast website. Excellent developer knows how to make user believe that the site is fast enough for them. And with this, we've reached the end event marker of this talk. Thank you.